DK Metcalf on the Get God Pod with Marshawn Lynch and Mike Robinson talking about the move that has him going from Seattle to Pittsburgh, and the grass really is greener. 5-year, $150 million extension. We got the full breakdown at PFT. It's really 3 years, 86.5, and then the Steelers will decide what to do after that. And the last year is almost in the category of phony baloney aimed at propping up the overall perception of the deal and the value of the deal at signing. I think it's a 3-year, $86 million deal. The first 2 years are fully guaranteed. It's still more than he was due to make. He was due to make $18 million this year, and then he would have been a free agent. So he gets some security, he gets some big money guaranteed, and he goes to a new team that will or won't be in a position to use him more. And, Michael, the big criticism that Sims and I have had of the Seahawks with DK Metcalf, they never use him the way they should. They don't get the ball in his hands. They don't scheme him open. They don't use the jet sweeps and the bubble screens. They don't take advantage of this freak, in a good way, as Christians say, athlete that they have. Now the Steelers paying him $30 million a year on a 5-year deal, in theory, they have an obligation to get more out of DK Metcalf, and right now QB1 is Mason Rudolph. So it raises the stakes for this separate thing the Steelers are trying to figure out, which is who the hell is our quarterback going to be when the season starts.
But you know what? That's almost like it's not a good thing to have Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback. But for a receiver, you look at it and you say, okay, who else is he going to throw the ball to? This is a below average quarterback, and I'm a great receiver. Give me the ball. So if you look at, for example, you look at Brock Bowers last year, no different position, but Brock Bowers with the Raiders. They had bad quarterbacks throughout the season. But you know what the bad quarterbacks understood? That's Brock Bowers. I got to get the ball to Brock Bowers. So he comes away with a historic rookie season for a tight end. I think if you're Mason Rudolph or anyone else in Pittsburgh, you look around and you say, who's our number one option? It's going to be DK Metcalf. So I think he knows he's going to get the ball, no matter who the quarterback is. He knows he's going to get paid. And those are two things in Seattle that he didn't know, because Jackson Smith and Jigba became their number one receiver, in terms of receptions at least, and he wasn't getting the contract that he was looking for. So I think that's why he says the grass is greener, because he's going to get two things he didn't get last year.
I think that's a great point. And look, Mason Rudolph is not as bad as some would say. He's been around for a long time. He was with the Steelers for 6 years before he left in free agency. He was 3-0 down the stretch in the regular season after the soft benching of Kenny Pickett in 23. Did not embarrass himself in the playoff game at Buffalo. It was 31-17 as the final score, and there were periods in the second half where, while watching that game, it was kind of like, are the Bills going to lose to Mason Rudolph? And then he hits the open market. The Titans offer him more than what the Steelers wanted to pay. The Steelers actually paid Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kyle Allen collectively less than what Mason Rudolph made, because there was that big guarantee that the Broncos owed Russell Wilson. And now Rudolph is back, and I've been saying that he's basically their insurance policy against whatever comes next. If they get Aaron Rodgers, if they don't. If they get Joe Flacco, if they don't. I don't think Russell Wilson's going back. I think Mason Rudolph coming back slammed the door on Russell Wilson. But you're right. If it would be Mason Rudolph, yeah, what's our strategy? Let's see. Throw the ball to George, or not George Pickens. That should have been the strategy in past years. Now it's throw the ball to DK Metcalf. I do wonder, though, how long George Pickens is going to be there, because he's in a contract year. And if they're going to force feed the ball to DK Metcalf to justify his contract, that's just fewer touches and opportunities for Pickens, who needs to have a big year to go out and get paid on the open market what he thinks he's worth.
Yeah, and it's also, when you think about Pickens and Metcalf, it would seem that the presence of Metcalf could make Pickens' life easier. He's a great deep threat himself. And if you focused a lot on DK Metcalf, it'll isolate Pickens in some one-on-one situations. But I'm looking at the other thing. Mike, are the Pittsburgh Steelers prepared to do what their personnel says they should be prepared to do? If you've got DK Metcalf, you've got George Pickens. I don't know who they come away with in the draft. Do they go Do they go receiver? Do they go running back? Do they go more offensive weaponry? Are they prepared to kind of open it up a little bit? It looks like their roster is starting to say, sure, why not? But I just can't imagine the Steelers with an explosive offense under Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator. I just don't see that.
The move they made to pay DK Metcalf, the trade isn't the thing that's stunning. The move they made to pay him is the single most out of character and surprising move the Steelers have made in the 52 years that I've been paying attention to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I first discovered pro football the day of the Immaculate Reception in 1972, Steelers-Raiders. Grew up 60 miles from Pittsburgh, went to college in Pittsburgh, spent time in Pittsburgh practicing law, have lived within 100 miles of Pittsburgh basically my entire life. I know how that team operates. To pay that kind of money to a stranger to the organization, not one of their own guys, to somebody who's never played for the Steelers before, who plays a position that currently isn't the kind of position that is going to get the kind of value for the team based upon the way they've been running their team in recent years, it makes no sense. And it really does, I think, increase the pressure on Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, the entire organization, and whoever the quarterback is to get the ball to DK Metcalf. Because if the guy doesn't have 110 catches for 1,400 yards and 13 touchdowns this year, why the hell did we pay him this money?
Yeah, I mean, like, you've got to come away, and this is an organization. Everything you say is true. Let's add this to it. The other thing that's so surprising, this is the organization that develops wide receivers. They find them. That historically, they just find receivers. They could give like a class, a whole seminar, a 3-day seminar on how to find a wide receiver and then develop them and sign them or let them go and then bring in another one. You're talking about, Juju was great with the Steelers and Antonio Brown and Hines Ward. I mean, just going back over the years, they've had a lot of big-time wide receivers, and they go out and a guy they don't draft, they trade for somebody else's problem, contractually at least, and give them a big deal. That is out of character for them. So it does make you wonder what they're willing to do and how it came to be. Because this is not, I think that their general manager there now, Omar Khan, this is probably like year 2 or year 3 for Khan?
3. Yeah,
this is year 3. So it's a little different. He has a different view of it than they're used to. So I wonder how that looks as we move forward. This may not be the last move for the Steelers. It seems like something different is happening there.
They really have done a great job of drafting and developing receivers, and I've tried in the past, whether interviewing Khan or Kevin Colbert, his predecessor as GM, like, what is the secret sauce that you guys have? Not that they're going to share it with the world. It's like Colonel Sanders giving up the 11 herbs and spices, but they've figured something out on how to properly scout receivers. The problem, though, is not all of them, but some of them have deficiencies as it relates to their ability to work and play well with others. They're dealing with that now with George Pickens. They've dealt with it with Antonio Brown. They've had others that, like Deontay Johnson, who they ultimately paid and then traded and then bounced around the league. And with Metcalf, it's different because they've gone out and made the massive investment at a time when we know they can go out and find quality receivers who can come in and get the job done for a lot less money than what they're going to pay Metcalf. It just creates a very bizarre situation in Pittsburgh. And the quarterback situation, which we thought was going to be resolved as early as last Tuesday. I firmly believe that Rodgers and the Steelers were closing in on doing something, and then all of a sudden the Vikings possibility pops up. Once Sam Darnold is gone and Daniel Jones is gone, the Vikings possibility pops up, and that's what caused Aaron Rodgers to slam on the brakes. And he's going to slam the brakes on. He's going to bet the under on J.J. McCarthy, and he's going to wait to see whether or not McCarthy struggles just enough in the offseason program to get the Vikings to call up Rodgers. Without that wrinkle, Michael, we'd already have the ultimate reality show set up in Pittsburgh of Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, and George Pickens.
Right, and you point that out, like Minnesota at some point, well, that was a possibility, and Minnesota says, no, we're not doing that. But if you're Aaron Rodgers, that's an easier job. That's a better job, isn't it? It's not the historic, iconic Pittsburgh Steelers, but they were 14-3 last year. They've got an offensive guru as their play caller. They've already got established wide receivers in Justin Jefferson and Addison. And so if you're Aaron Rodgers, they play indoors, so it's more comfortable. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, yeah, you would look at that and say, it's easier for me in my 40s to go to this job. This is more plug and play than this situation when they haven't won a playoff game in nearly a decade, and their quarterbacks have been all over the place, and their offensive coordinator is not necessarily known as a gifted play designer or play caller.
It's a great point, and it's one of the reasons why I think the Steelers are going to still be figuring out what they're going to do at quarterback for a while, and their fans just need to accept that there aren't going to be any quick answers. All right. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.